The words hung in the air like shattered glass, sharp and irreversible. "I married without love." Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her notepad, her expression unchanged, though internally she registered the weight of what had just been said. In her 15 years as a psychologist, she had heard countless confessions, affairs, addictions, betrayals of every kind, but there was something particularly haunting about this one. The woman sitting across from her, elegant in a cream blouse and tailored pants, had just admitted to one of life's most devastating mistakes with the calm precision of someone ordering coffee. "Tell me more about that, Elena," Dr. Chen said, her voice warm but steady. Elena Morrison sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl awaiting judgment. She was 34, though she could have passed for younger if not for the tiredness around her eyes, a weariness that had nothing to do with lack of sleep and everything to do with the burden of living a lie. "Where would you like me to start?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Wherever you need to." Elena's gaze drifted to the window, where autumn leaves were performing their final dance before winter claimed them. She envied their freedom, their ability to simply let go. "I met David 6 years ago at a work conference. He was presentable, successful, kind. Everyone said we looked good together. My parents adored him. He was exactly the kind of man they'd always wanted me to marry. Stable, reliable, safe." She paused, testing the weight of that last word. "After 2 years of dating," he proposed. "It was perfect, really. Candlelit dinner, beautiful ring, all the right words. And when he asked me to marry him, I said yes." "Did you want to say yes?" Elena's hands tightened almost imperceptibly. "I wanted to say yes. Does that make sense?" Dr. Chen nodded, encouraging her to continue. "Everyone was so happy. My mother cried tears of joy. My friends threw me parties. David was over the moon. And I went through the motions. I smiled for photos, tried on dresses, picked flowers, tasted cakes. I did everything a happy bride is supposed to do. But inside," Eleanor's voice cracked slightly, "inside I felt nothing. Nothing at all. Affection, yes, gratitude, respect, but love, the kind of love that makes you want to wake up next to someone for the rest of your life? No." Elena finally met Dr. Chen's eyes. "And I knew it. Even as I walked down that aisle, even as I said I do, even as everyone clapped and cheered, I knew I was making a terrible mistake. But I couldn't stop myself. It was like watching myself in a movie, unable to change the script." "What stopped you from speaking up?" Elena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Fear, shame, the weight of everyone's expectations, the thought of disappointing my parents, of hurting David, of admitting I was too much of a coward to follow through with what everyone said was the right choice. It seemed easier to just go along with it. I told myself that love would come, that it grows over time, like everyone says. That passion fades anyway, and what really matters is partnership and commitment. And did love come? No, Elena said simply. We've been married for 3 years now. 3 years of pretending, 3 years of going through the motions, 3 years of waking up next to a man I respect but don't love, feeling more alone than I've ever felt in my life. Dr. Chen set down her pen. What made you decide to come here today? Eleanor's composure finally cracked. Tears welled up in her eyes, though she fought to keep them from falling. Last week was our 3rd anniversary. David made reservations at an expensive restaurant, bought me jewelry, told me he loved me. And when he looked at me with such genuine happiness in his eyes, I realized the horrible truth. I'm not just hurting myself, I'm hurting him too. He deserves someone who loves him completely, and I'm stealing that from him every day I stay. Have you told him how you feel? No, I can't. How do you tell someone that everything has been a lie, that every "I love you" has been empty words, that you've been living a performance for 3 years? Elena wiped away a tear that had escaped despite her efforts. I'm trapped, Dr. Chen. Trapped in a life I built with my own cowardice, and I don't know how to get out without destroying everything and everyone around me. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly. Elena, the fact that you're here tells me something important. It tells me you're ready to face the truth, even though it's painful, and that's the first step toward finding your way forward. But I need you to understand something. This journey won't be easy. It will require you to be honest in ways you've never been before, first with yourself, then with David, and then with everyone else. Are you ready for that? Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on her. When she opened them again, there was something different in her expression, not quite determination, but perhaps the faintest glimmer of hope. I don't know if I'm ready, she admitted, but I can't keep living like this. So yes, I'm here. Let's begin. Over the following weeks, Dr. Chen's office became Elena's sanctuary, a place where she could finally remove the mask she wore for the rest of the world. Each session was an excavation, carefully brushing away layers of self-deception to reveal the truth beneath. In their fourth session, Dr. Chen introduced an exercise. I want you to close your eyes, she instructed. Take yourself back to the day before David proposed. You're alone in your apartment. What are you feeling? Elena closed her eyes, her breathing deepening as she allowed herself to return to that moment. Minutes passed in silence. I'm scared, she finally said, her eyes still closed. I'm scared because I know what's coming. He's been acting strange all week, nervous, secretive. I know he's going to propose, and I'm terrified because I know I'm going to say yes, even though I shouldn't. Why are you going to say yes? Because I'm 29 years old, and I'm tired of being asked when I'm going to settle down. Because my younger sister just got engaged, and I can see the pity in my mother's eyes every time she looks at me. Because David is wonderful, and everyone says I should be grateful. Because I'm afraid that if I say no, I'll never get another chance. Because I'm afraid of being alone. Open your eyes, Elena. Elena opened her eyes, finding Dr. Chen's steady gaze waiting for her. You just named several fears, Dr. Chen said. Fear of judgment, fear of disappointment, fear of loneliness. But I didn't hear one reason based on what you actually wanted. If you could have erased everyone else's opinions, everyone else's expectations, if it was just you and your own truth, would you have said yes? Elena's answer came without hesitation. No. The simplicity of that word hung between them like a revelation. I wouldn't have said yes, Elena continued, her voice growing stronger. I cared about him, but I didn't want to spend my life with him. I don't even know what I wanted. I'd spent so long trying to be what everyone else needed that I'd lost touch with my own desires entirely. Dr. Chen nodded. That's what we're going to work on, Elena. Not just how to handle your marriage, but how to reconnect with yourself, because you can't make authentic decisions about your life until you know who you are and what you truly want. The homework assignment started small. Doctor, Chen asked Elena to spend 30 minutes each day doing something alone. No phone, no distractions. Just herself and her own thoughts. At first, Elena found it unbearable. The silence was deafening, filled with the accusations and regrets she'd been running from. But gradually, something shifted. She began to remember things about herself she'd forgotten. She remembered that she used to love painting before she'd dismissed it as impractical. She remembered that she preferred quiet evenings with a book to loud parties, even though David loved socializing. She remembered that she'd once dreamed of traveling to remote places, sleeping under unfamiliar stars, before she'd traded those dreams for the safety of a conventional life. In their 7th session, Elena brought something with her. A small watercolor painting she'd made. It was abstract, all blues and greys, with hints of gold breaking through like sunlight through storm clouds. I painted this last Tuesday, she said, setting it on the table between them. I haven't painted in almost 10 years. I'd forgotten how much I loved it, How peaceful it makes me feel. Why did you stop? David doesn't really understand art. He's more practical-minded. And I suppose I just let it go. It seemed like a small thing. Was it a small thing? Eleanor looked at the painting, really looked at it, and felt tears prick her eyes again. No, it wasn't small at all. It was a piece of who I am. Dr. Chen smiled gently. Elena, what you're describing is something we call self-abandonment. It's when we systematically give up pieces of ourselves, our interests, our desires, our authentic identity, to fit into a mold we think we should occupy. It happens gradually, so gradually that we often don't notice until one day we wake up and realize we've become a stranger to ourselves. That's exactly how I feel. Like I don't even know who I am anymore. Then let's find out, Dr. Chen said. I want you to make a list, 2 columns. On one side, write down everything you do in a typical week. On the other side, mark whether you do each thing because you want to, because you feel you should, or because someone else expects it. Bring it to our next session. The list was devastating in its honesty. When Elena returned the following week, she handed it to Dr. Chen with shaking hands. Dr. Chen scanned the page. Out of 47 activities Elena had listed, only 9 were marked as things she genuinely wanted to do. Everything else, from cooking David's favorite meals, to attending his work functions, to watching action movies she didn't enjoy, was done out of obligation or expectation. How did you feel making this list? Dr. Chen asked. Sick, Elena admitted. Physically sick, because I realized that I've been living someone else's life. I've been trying so hard to be the wife David wanted, the daughter my parents wanted, that I completely lost sight of what I wanted. And what do you want, Elena? It was a simple question, but it struck Elena like a thunderbolt. She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. Minutes passed. I don't know, she finally whispered. Isn't that pathetic? I'm 34 years old, and I don't know what I want from my own life. It's not pathetic, Dr. Chen assured her. It's honest. And honesty is where healing begins. Over the next few weeks, I want you to start experimenting. Try new things. Do things that scare you a little. Pay attention to what makes you feel alive, what makes time disappear, what makes you feel like yourself. And most importantly, I want you to start practicing something difficult, saying no. The changes started small, but rippled outward like stones dropped in still water. Elena began saying no to things she didn't want to do, politely but firmly. No, she didn't want to go to another work dinner. No, she didn't want to spend Sunday with David's parents. No, she didn't want to watch another sports game. David noticed. How could he not? You've been different lately, he said one evening as they cleaned up after dinner. Distant. Elena's heart raced. This was the conversation she'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. I've been doing some thinking. About what? She took a deep breath. About us, about myself, about what I want from life. David set down the dish he was drying, his expression concerned. Eleanor, what's going on? Are you okay? No, she said, and the honesty of it was both terrifying and liberating. I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for a long time. They sat down at the kitchen table, and for the first time in 3 years, Elena began to tell the truth. Not all of it. She wasn't ready for that yet, but enough. She told him she'd been feeling lost, that she'd been seeing a therapist, that she was trying to figure out who she was and what she wanted from her life. What she didn't say, couldn't say yet, was that what she'd discovered was that she didn't want the life they'd built together. David reached across the table and took her hand. Why didn't you tell me you were struggling? We could have worked through this together. The kindness in his voice made everything worse. Eleanor felt tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Hey, there's nothing to apologize for. Everyone goes through rough patches. We'll figure this out. Maybe we could see your therapist together. Do couples counseling?" Elena gently pulled her hand away. "I need to figure some things out on my own first. Can you give me that space?" David looked hurt, but nodded. "Of course. Whatever you need." That night, Elena lay awake long after David had fallen asleep. She felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing she would have to jump, but not yet ready to let go. In their 12th session, Dr. Chen asked the question Elena had been avoiding. "Have you thought about what you want to do about your marriage?" Elena had thought about little else. "Every day, every hour. But I'm paralyzed. If I stay, I'm living a lie and preventing both of us from finding real happiness. If I leave, I'm destroying David's life, disappointing everyone who believed in us, and admitting that I've wasted 3 years of both our lives. Those aren't the only 2 options, Elena. There's a third possibility you haven't mentioned." "What's that?" "Honesty. You could tell David the truth, all of it, and let both of you make informed decisions about what comes next. Maybe there's a path forward you haven't imagined yet." Elena shook her head. "How do I tell him I never loved him? How do I destroy him like that? Is staying with him while you don't love him less destructive? Is continuing to pretend less of a lie? Elena, you're protecting him from a truth he has the right to know. You're making decisions for him instead of with him. That's not kindness, that's control disguised as protection." The words hit Elena like cold water. She'd been telling herself she was staying to protect David, but Dr. Chen was right. She was making decisions about his life without his consent, treating him like he was too fragile to handle the truth. "What if he hates me?" Elena asked, her voice small. "He might. He'll certainly be hurt and angry, but Elena, he also might thank you for your honesty. He might feel relieved. He might have been sensing something was wrong and questioning his own perceptions. You won't know until you have the courage to be honest. And if honesty means divorce, then at least it's an honest divorce. You'll both be free to find lives and loves that are authentic. You'll both have the chance to be genuinely happy instead of comfortable." Elena sat in silence for a long moment. "I'm terrified." "I know, but being terrified and being ready aren't mutually exclusive. The question is, are you more afraid of speaking the truth or of living another year, another 5 years, another 20 years in a lie?" When Elena left the session that day, she knew what she had to do. The knowing sat in her stomach like a stone, heavy and undeniable. Elena planned it carefully. She chose a Saturday evening when they had no plans, no interruptions possible. She cooked a simple dinner, not David's favorite, but something she actually enjoyed. She poured them each a glass of wine, and then, as they sat across from each other at the dining table where they'd shared hundreds of meals, she spoke the words that would change everything. "David, I need to tell you something. It's going to be painful to hear, but I can't keep hiding from it anymore." David set down his fork, his expression shifting from casual to concerned. "What is it?" Elena's hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "I married you without being in love with you, and I'm still not in love with you." The silence that followed was profound. Elena watched emotions flash across David's face, confusion, disbelief, hurt, anger, like weather systems moving across a landscape. "What?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "I care about you deeply. I respect you. I'm grateful for your kindness. But I'm not in love with you, and I never have been. I said yes to your proposal because I was afraid of disappointing people, of being alone, of being judged. I convinced myself that love would come, that it was enough to have respect and partnership, but it wasn't enough. It isn't enough." David stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He walked to the window, his back to her. 3 years, he said, his voice tight. 3 years of marriage and you're telling me it's all been... What? A lie? Not entirely. My affection for you is real. My respect is real. But the romantic love, the passion, the desire to build a life together, those weren't real, and you deserve to be with someone for whom all of it is real. David turned around, and Elena saw tears streaming down his face. The sight of his pain was almost unbearable, but she forced herself not to look away. She owed him that much. "Why now?" he demanded. "Why wait 3 years to tell me this?" "Because I've been a coward. Because I've been more concerned with avoiding difficult conversations than with living honestly. Because I needed to work with a therapist to find the courage to admit the truth, first to myself and then to you. I'm so sorry, David. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused, for the years I've taken, for the lie I've let you believe. Did you ever love me, even in the beginning?" Elena met his gaze, tears now flowing down her own cheeks. "I cared for you deeply. But love, the kind of love a marriage should be built on, no, and I'm so sorry." David sank back into his chair, his face in his hands. They sat in silence for what felt like hours. Finally, he looked up. "I felt it," he said quietly. "I felt that something was wrong. There was always this distance between us, this wall I couldn't quite breach. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was being paranoid, but I felt it." Elena nodded, fresh tears spilling. "I tried to hide it, but I wasn't successful. I'm sorry you had to question your own perceptions because of my dishonesty." "Are you asking for a divorce?" "I'm asking for honesty between us. For the first time in our relationship, I'm being completely honest with you. What we do from here, that should be a decision we make together." David was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was measured, controlled. "I need time to process this. I can't even think right now." "Of course, take all the time you need. I'm going to stay at my brother's tonight, maybe for a few days. I need space." Elena nodded. "I understand." She watched him pack a bag, moving through their bedroom like a ghost. When he reached the door, he turned back. "I loved you," he said, and the past tense hit Elena like a physical blow. "I really, truly loved you. I know. You deserved someone who loved you back the same way. I'm sorry I wasn't that person." After he left, Elena sat alone in the silent apartment. The relief she'd expected to feel was there, but so was grief, for the pain she'd caused, for the time they'd both lost, for the death of a marriage that had never truly been alive. She picked up her phone and texted Dr. Chen. "I told him. It's done." The response came quickly. "How do you feel?" Elena thought about the question for a long time before answering. "Free and devastated and terrified. And more myself than I've been in years." The weeks that followed were the hardest of Elena's life. David moved out permanently, staying with his brother while they figured out the practical details of separating their lives. The news spread through their social circle like wildfire. Elena's parents called, bewildered and angry. Friends took sides. Some supported Elena's honesty, others condemned her cruelty. "You're being selfish," her mother said over the phone, her voice cold. "Marriage is about commitment, not feelings. You made vows." "I made vows based on a lie, Mom. Staying would have been the real betrayal." "You've ruined that poor man's life. And for what? Some fairy tale idea of love?" Elena felt the old guilt rising, the familiar urge to apologize and shrink herself, but this time she recognized it for what it was, conditioning, not truth. "I've ruined 3 years of his life by lying," Elena said firmly. "I refuse to ruin the rest of it by continuing the lie. David deserves to be truly loved, and so do I." Her mother hung up without another word. In therapy, Elena processed the fallout session by session. I feel like I'm being punished for finally being honest, she told Dr. Chen. People are acting like staying in the lie would have been the noble thing to do. That's because honesty is uncomfortable for people. Your truth challenges their own choices, their own compromises. When you refuse to settle, it forces others to question whether they've settled. That's threatening. But maybe they're right. Maybe I am selfish. Elena, let me ask you something. If David had been the one to come to you and say he'd never loved you, that he'd married you out of obligation, would you want him to stay? Elena thought about it. No. It would hurt terribly, but no. I'd want to be with someone who chose me because they truly wanted me, not because they felt trapped. Exactly. You're giving David the chance to find that, and you're giving yourself the same chance. That's not selfish, that's honest. And honesty, especially this kind, requires tremendous courage. As spring turned to summer, Eleanor and David met several times with a mediator to work out the divorce details. The conversations were painful but civil. There was anger, yes, and hurt, but also, gradually, a strange kind of understanding. I've been doing some thinking, David said during one of their last meetings, and I realized that I ignored a lot of signs. I wanted our marriage to be perfect so badly that I didn't want to see what was really there, or what wasn't there. I'm sorry, Elena said for the 100th time. I know, and I'm starting to believe that maybe this is better than spending 20 more years before one of us finally admitted the truth. He paused. I met someone. Elena felt a complex swirl of emotions, relief, sadness, happiness for him, grief for what might have been if things were different. That's wonderful, David. Truly. She's different from you, different from what I thought I wanted. But when I'm with her, I feel something I don't think I ever felt with you, something easy and right. He looked at Elena with something like understanding in his eyes. I think I finally get what you were trying to tell me, about the difference between caring about someone and being in love with them. I hope you'll be happy, Elena said, and meant it. You too, Elena. I really do hope that. A year after that pivotal session, where she first spoke the words, "I'm married without love," Elena returned to Dr. Chen's office for what they both knew might be their final regular session. "How are you?" Dr. Chen asked, the question carrying more weight than those 3 simple words usually held. Elena smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I'm good. Actually good. Not just saying it to be polite good. Tell me about your life now." "Well, the divorce is finalized. David and I are on speaking terms. Not friends exactly, but not enemies either. I moved into a small apartment downtown. It's tiny, but it's mine. I've been painting again, seriously this time. I even sold 3 pieces at a local gallery." Elena paused, her smile widening. "And I'm planning a trip. 3 months backpacking through Southeast Asia. Just me and a backpack and no plans. That's a big step. It's terrifying, but it's the kind of terrifying that feels right, you know? Not the terrified of making a mistake kind, but the terrified because I'm actually living kind." Dr. Chen leaned back in her chair. "Do you remember that first session, when you sat in that chair and told me you married without love? I'll never forget it. I was so ashamed. And now?" Eleanor considered the question. "Now I'm not ashamed of marrying without love. I'm proud that I found the courage to admit it. I'm proud that I chose truth over comfort. I'm proud that I gave both David and myself the chance to find something real." "Have you found something real? Romantically, I mean." "Not yet. And honestly, I'm not looking. For the first time in my life, I'm okay being alone. Actually, I'm more than okay. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting to know myself without trying to mold myself into what someone else needs. When love comes, if it comes, I want to be whole on my own first. I want to choose it because I want it, not because I'm afraid of being alone." "That's significant growth, Elena. I still have bad days, Elena admitted. Days when I wonder if I made the right choice. Days when I see happy couples and feel a pang of loneliness. Days when my mother calls with another guilt trip about how I threw away a perfectly good marriage. How do you handle those days? I paint. I call friends who understand. I read the journal I kept throughout this process and remind myself why I made the choices I made. And I remember what you told me in one of our early sessions, that the opposite of love isn't hate or loneliness, it's betrayal of self. I was betraying myself every day I stayed in that marriage. Now, even on the bad days, I'm living in alignment with my truth. That's worth the difficulty. Dr. Chen smiled. I think you've found your answer, Elena. What answer? The one you've been searching for since you first walked in here. You asked me how to be happy, and you've discovered it's not about finding the perfect relationship or living up to others' expectations. It's about being honest with yourself, even when that honesty is painful. It's about choosing authenticity over approval. It's about building a life that's true to who you are, not who everyone else thinks you should be. Elena felt tears prick her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. Thank you for everything, for not judging me, for helping me find my way. You found your way, Elena. I just held up a mirror so you could see yourself clearly. As Elena left the office that day, she paused on the sidewalk outside, feeling the sun on her face. Somewhere across the city, David was building a new life with someone who loved him the way he deserved. Her parents were slowly coming to terms with her choices, even if they didn't agree with them. Friends who truly understood had stayed. Those who didn't had drifted away. And Elena, she was finally, genuinely happy. Not because her life was perfect or easy, not because she'd found some fairy tale ending, but because she was living as herself, making choices aligned with her truth, building a life she didn't have to escape from. She pulled out her phone and opened her notes app, adding to the list she'd been keeping, things she'd learned on this journey. Love is not enough to build a marriage on, but honesty is essential. Being alone is better than being lonely in a relationship. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing despite being terrified. You can't find yourself while pretending to be someone else. It's never too late to choose authenticity over approval. The people who truly love you will love you for who you are, not who they want you to be. Happiness isn't a destination. It's a practice of daily honesty with yourself. Elena slipped the phone back in her pocket and started walking. She didn't know exactly where she was going. She had a few hours before her painting class started, but for the first time in her life, not knowing didn't scare her. She was finding her way, one honest step at a time, and that was enough. If you made it this far, don't forget to leave your comment, your like, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new stories. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.